Alright, so now that we have properly started on the topic of financial mathematics, we can finally start talking about the concept of an income. So if you're in year 9 or if you're still in secondary school, you're probably not thinking about the importance of knowing things about jobs and whether you're going to make a salary or a wage, or how much money you're going to need to spend on a weekly basis on things like rent or a mortgage if you manage to get a house or an apartment, things like groceries, the amount of food that you eat during the week, things like electricity bills, water bills, internet bills, and whatever. But I think it is important because a lot of people, after they finish year 10, they actually go into have their first jobs. And these jobs are usually casual. So a casual job could be working at a cinema or in a restaurant or even in retail. And that's when they start, they're first exposed to the real world, in which you actually have to work to earn the money that you need in order to live and buy the things that you need, or achieve whatever you propose yourself to achieve in the future. So I guess the main thing about income is just how much money you're earning during the year. So basically income is how much money you're making out of your job. And basically there are two main types of income. So you have the wage, which is what we normally refer to as when you have a casual job, for example, you're only working a certain number of hours per week and it is usually less than 20. Then a wage is usually expressed as an amount that is paid per hour. So that amount does not vary very much. So an example of a wage would be something like $15.50 per hour. Now with a wage, one of the main features of it is that it can actually vary depending on whether you're working on a weekend or on a weekday. And if you're working, for example, in a public holiday, then you may be paid extra. So sometimes you have types of pay that include 1.5 hours, which means that instead of earning this amount, you're earning 1.5 times that. You also have double time, which is usually what you would earn on a public holiday or maybe in a weekend, depending on the type of job that you have. So you would earn twice as much per hour as you would normally earn on a weekday. And then for a salary, what a salary means is it's a fixed amount of money that you earn for the whole year. So basically, if you're earning something like $65,000 per year, that means pretty much that's how much the company is going to pay you for the whole year. And then normally a fixed amount is something that would be either part-time or full-time. So part-time is something like 20 plus hours per week, and then full-time will be something more like 40 hours per week. So that's the standard in most countries. You're working 40 hours per week. So that means you're working Monday to Friday and you're working 8 hours on each day. So that's considered full-time. So for those kinds of positions, you would normally have a salary. And then, but what they actually do is they're not going to pay you once per year, because obviously that would be silly. What they actually do is they split that payment up into either a monthly payment. So that means that you would have to divide this by 12, and then that's the amount that they will pay you on each month. Or it is even more common to do it fortnightly. So that means every 2 weeks. So basically, if a whole year has 52 weeks in it, then that means that every 2 weeks you're paid. So that means that there are 26 fortnights in a year. So there are 26 fortnights in a year, and then that means that you would be paid 65,000 over 26 on each of those fortnights. So let's just do some calculations with this, just to get you more comfortable with that. So let's start with the salary. So suppose you're making 65 grand, and then you're paid on a fortnightly basis. So that means every 2 weeks. So if we want to find out how much money, so let's call it M, you're making per fortnight, then all you would do is you would grab this amount of money and then you would divide it by 26. So if we put that in our calculators, that comes down as $2,500. And if you wanted to basically calculate how much you're earning per week, because you wanted to take into account expenses and all that, then you could say something like money per week would be, instead of you could just take this value and divide it by 2, because you know that this is every 2 weeks. So divided by 2, that would be $1,250 per week. Okay, so, and you might think, oh wow, that sounds like a lot of money, but in the real world we have bills and we have a lot of things that we need to pay for that unfortunately we cannot live without. So food is one of them. And in general, if you take into account how much food you're eating during the week, if you're doing grocery shopping once a week, or if you're eating out every day, that could usually vary anywhere between $100 if you're really saving money, and it could go up to even $400 or $500 if you're eating at fancy places on a regular basis. So already just on food you're spending that much. And then you have other expenses like rent, for example. And if you're living in Sydney, it's very likely that your rent is going to be at least $500 or more per week. So already, you know, like you're losing $900 if you want to live a fancy life. Of course, you could get away with something like $300 per week if you move away from the city. But then again, there are a lot of factors that influence how much you're going to be paying. So this is why it is important to at least know about this kind of thing from now, because in the future it's actually going to be quite important for you to be able to budget and just be very careful with how much money you're spending, because you might think, oh, this sounds like a reasonable amount of money, but trust me, in the real world it's really not that much. So I guess that's the whole point of learning about income. And to give you another example, let's say that instead of getting paid a salary, you're just working casual hours. So let's say you're doing something like 15 hours per week. So a work like this could be something in retail. So you're working for a clothing shop or a restaurant, for example. And let's say they pay you something like $18 per hour. So then let's say that you're working that per week and you want to find out, okay, so how much money would that amount to throughout the whole year? Well, you would just grab $18. This would be multiplied by 15. So this would give you the amount that you earn in a single week. So 18 times 15, that would be $270. And then if you want to find, so this would be per week. If you wanted to find the amount that this would be per year, then you would just multiply 270 by 52 weeks. So that's how many weeks we have in a year. So in this case, that would come down as $14,040 essentially. So that would be for a whole year. And obviously, if you're looking at something like this per week and rent is costing you $300 per week, then you're in big trouble. So obviously, if you're working just casual hours and it's not a lot, you wouldn't be able to just afford rent by yourself. You would probably have to live in a share room with other people. But I guess you don't have to worry about that too much now. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But at least now you know what income is and what the different types of payments are. And in the next video, we're going to do some more examples on this so you get comfortable just getting your head around some of these calculations.